Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to get our meeting started and enjoy the presentations and a lot of the questions and comments that'll come up. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our director, Sarah Parker-Pauley, to give us comments and an update. Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Good morning to you and good morning to everyone in attendance today. It's great to see a pretty full room this morning. Okay, so I tend to start with my travel, and I'll hit just a few highlights. Since our last meeting, I had the pleasure to travel to Nashville, Tennessee to attend the 50th anniversary of the National Wild Turkey Federation at their annual convention at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel. So just imagine 60,000 crazed and passionate turkey hunters. It is not a quiet place nor conference, but it sure is a lot of fun. And by the way, our own NWTF state chapter was recognized as the top state chapter in the nation.
Wow.
So congratulations to the Missouri State Chapter of the NWTF. From there, it was on to Tampa, Florida to speak to the United States Geological Survey and the Cooperative Research Units, and to the Lake of the Ozarks to speak to our district supervisors around the Missouri Natural Resources Conference. And many of us next week will be in St. Louis to attend the 88th North American Wildlife and Natural Resources Conference that the state of Missouri is hosting this year. So continued busy travel. This is always my favorite thing to do, and that is just to recognize several of our MDC staff who most recently have been awarded for their excellent work for conservation. First, a huge congratulations to MDC Wildlife Management Coordinator Alan Leary for receiving the E. Sidney Stevens Professional Wildlife Award from the Missouri chapter of the Wildlife Society during the Missouri Natural Resources Conference. Several MDC staff were also honored at the Conservation Federation of Missouri's annual convention. And Tyler Schwartz, our executive director from CFM, is here this morning. Good morning, Tyler. Among those recognized at the CFM conference include Jeff Cantrell, conservation educator in the Southwest region. He received the Conservation Communicator Award for his tireless work to help educate Missouri students about conservation. Justin Warren, forester in the Southeast region, received the Forest Conservationist of the Year for his invaluable efforts in streamlining and completing timber harvests all across the region. Next up, our own Nate Minix received he is our Natural Resources Planning Section Chief, and he received Professional Conservationist of the Year for his dedicated work on multiple projects, from working with partners in grant applications to executing on various department initiatives, including our comprehensive conservation strategy. Finally, a retiree, Bill White, received the Outstanding Lifetime Achievement for his many years of dedicated service to the department and to the people's natural resources. So a huge congratulations to Bill as well. I'm so very proud of all of these award winners and all the work they do to protect our forest, fish, and wildlife resources. Congratulations. Okay, not so positive news in some way, but nearly 31,400 samples have been tested so far during the 2022-23 chronic wasting disease surveillance year. I start with a big thank you to the many staff who are involved in our statewide surveillance efforts and to those who assisted with mandatory sampling last fall. A total of 78 CWD positive deer have been detected thus far, with 74 of the positives being located within existing CWD management zone counties. This year's total includes the detection of CWD in 9 new counties, 8 of which were either within the CWD management zone or in adjacent counties. Targeted calling efforts have been underway since mid-January and will end on March 15th. As staff work with landowners to implement the management tool to slow the spread of chronic wasting disease and minimize its effect on Missouri's deer populations. A big thank you to the many staff and landowners that have assisted with targeted calling this year. The management tool remains a critical part of our strategy to limit the effects of CWD on the Missouri deer herd, and your dedication, staff and landowners, to this effort is greatly appreciated. The Missouri National Archery in the Schools program. Missouri started MONASP in 2007. under the leadership of former Commissioner Don Johnson. This program continues to grow, and it provides an opportunity for all youth, regardless of their ability, to be more confident and accomplished. Recently, we just learned of our 1,000th school that has signed up for the program, so we know that Commissioner Johnson would be so incredibly proud of this. We are excited for the 15th annual Missouri National Archery in the Schools Program State Tournament that begins tomorrow. The MONAS State Tournament has seen tremendous growth and is the second largest state archery tournament in the nation. More than 4,500 student archers from throughout Missouri are scheduled to compete in the state tournament after shooting qualifying scores through various local MONAS tournaments over the past year. These and other MONAS student archers will then be eligible to participate in the National Archery in the Schools Program National Tournament. So good luck to all of our archers this week. Great picture here as I'm looking in the crowd at the person, one of the folks shown in this picture. Trout opener season was just another fantastic trout opener for us. A big thanks to the MDC staff who make these events successful across the state. And despite the fact that this year's opening day fell on a Wednesday, daily tag sales saw an increase of about 514 tags sold over last year to total over 6,000 anglers across the 4 trout parks. We also saw increased interest from legislators, and we're excited to host multiple statewide leaders and House leadership at parks this year. And it's great to see Representative Bruce Sassman and his lovely wife Jan in the audience here today. We are in the process of traveling across the state to meet with MDC staff at our regional meetings, which we now do on an annual basis. And I certainly enjoy these times. I know my deputies do, members of director's office and senior leadership. It's a wonderful opportunity to just spend time with them. And we provide updates. They provide critical updates to us on all of the great conservation activities happening in the region. So we've completed 3 of these, have 6 more scheduled, but great opportunities to meet with our staff. As efforts to increase alternative energy continue, the department has joined forces with Conservation Science Global Inc. and the Renewable Energy Wildlife Institute on a research project studying the interaction between bald eagles and wind turbines. The multi-year project involves capturing 4 adult eagles and 4 immature eaglets from nests in the area of the Atchison Wind Facility. Researchers will fit the eagles with GPS tags on their backs. The tags collect GPS data every 5 seconds and provide information on location, flight, speed, altitude, and direction of movement. Species-specific information will be collected on how and when and where and why bald eagles move across the landscape during each stage of their lives, and where and why they may be at risk of negative interactions with wind energy facilities. So this will help developers and agencies better select and manage renewable wind facilities to protect eaglets and other raptors. So this project actually got some national exposure in the last couple of weeks. On February the 10th, MDC hosted a partnering meeting between the state of Missouri and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Participants included representatives of the 5 Army Corps districts with responsibility in Missouri. It also included members of our team, DNR, MoDOT, and SEMA. Over 60 attendees included all 5 USACE district commanders and their deputies, and included senior leadership from all the state agencies and, of course, other staff. This was the first Missouri partnering meeting since 2019, and these meetings are a great opportunity to build relationships, to provide critical updates on ongoing work, to share strategic direction, and facilitate collaborative efforts between Missouri and the Army Corps of Engineers. Our staff presented on our comprehensive conservation strategy, our tiered approach to management, and ongoing wetland planning. So a very successful partnering meeting. And speaking of wetlands, on February 1st through the 3rd, the department, along with the Conservation Federation of Missouri, hosted the Missouri Wetlands Summit at the Lodge of the Four Seasons. This event brought together over 330 people from 15 states and was focused on bringing a wide range of citizens and individuals from a wide range of backgrounds and interests, all to discuss wetlands. Attendees included state and federal agencies, non-governmental organizations, private citizens, wetland enthusiasts, and many more. There were a lot of presentations given over the several days discussing wetland management and restoration, bird migration changes, water quality, public-private partnerships, and many more presentations. We so appreciate the work that went into planning by CFM and its members and our team as well in putting this summit together. The challenges are vast, but through partnerships like this and events like this, we know that we can better coordinate our efforts. So very successful event there as well. Always have to give a bit of an update on feral hogs. The Feral Hog Elimination Partnership reports the removal of 68 feral hogs so far in the month of March, bringing the year-to-date total to about 1,424 hogs. The partnership also reports on the successful aerial gunning operations being conducted during the winter months. There have been successful aerial operations in the past, but this year, the helicopter has been utilized in conjunction with drones equipped with infrared cameras, and this combination has made aerial gunning operations much more efficient and effective. So continued great progress there as well. A quick update on the construction contracts awarded this year. So far this year, the Infrastructure Management Branch has awarded 15 construction project contracts totaling over $17 million. Major contracts awarded include work to build a new pump station at Shell Osage, replace the Conservation Education Center at Shepherd of the Hills Fish Hatchery, and relocate the Jerome Access. There are several other projects and works that will be bid out this spring, so the fast approaching construction season will be very busy, but many thanks to Jacob and his team in the IM branch to continue to move projects through the pipeline. I show this slide. This is actually Shepherd of the Hills and footprint outline of the new education center. And so what you see in red is the existing footprint, and the remainder is what will be designed for the new education center. I just think this is remarkable to show how much larger the new education center will be, and with it new exhibits, great opportunities to connect with 250,000 visitors that we are currently getting. My guess is with the new education center, we're going to have a lot more. Of course, we just recently held the Jerome Access groundbreaking. It's great to have members of the legislature attend that as well. And I hope that this next one works, Joel. Do I just need to hit it again? Okay, this one was kind of fun. Just a little action-packed video on the Jerome Access that development of the new access is officially underway. I thought you all might enjoy a little bit of that this morning. Share the Harvest results. The unofficial totals for Share the Harvest show just shy of 5,000 deer donated to the program, totaling 235,169 pounds of meat going to Missourians in need. Top MDC regions were Northeast region with just over 47,000 pounds, Northwest region with over 45,000 pounds, and the Kansas City region with just over 38,000 pounds of meat. Missouri Share the Harvest program helps deer hunters donate surplus venison to the needy. The program is administered by the Conservation Federation of Missouri and the Missouri Department of Conservation. So last Monday was also a bit of a historic day. The department joined leaders from the University of Missouri, leaders from the Missouri's College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources, and the Missouri Conservation Heritage Foundation to celebrate the new partnership in creating the Institute of Fisheries, Wetlands, and Aquatic Systems at the University of Missouri. We gathered at Eagle Bluffs Conservation Area to announce and discuss this institute and how it will advance sustainable management and conservation of fisheries, wetlands, and other aquatic systems. So several in the crowd were there, and Commissioners McHenry and Eckelkamp, thank you for your attendance at this historic day. So to end us, besides our very last slide, second to last slide, also to make you smile, I want you to just take a look at these kids from a Ferguson Florissant school discovering a roly-poly, one of the recurring education strategies used in our Discover Nature Schools program in lower grade levels is prompting students to notice and wonder natural phenomena. And I would say these students have learned well. So here's another little action video for you. He's saying roly-poly.
Wonder what he's doing on there.
It might be a baby
I
giant
wish you could hear the volume,
It
but
might be.
the point is, if this doesn't brighten our days and hearten our efforts, knowing that our staff are doing exactly what we intend for them to do, which is to connect the next generation to the wonder of the great outdoors. Look at that sweet little face. Don't we all wish we had that sort of excitement and wonder about the world at our stages of life? I'll just speak for myself. So a big thank you to our staff in
there
the
might be a
field for
kid and a
helping to
grown-up.
facilitate introductions of nature.
Please, the kids will stay right.
Okay, a few final brief history notes to end my presentation. On March 4th, 1940, the commission hired Faith Watkins, the first professional female employee. She was assigned to the youth and women's programs. On March 13th, 1946, the department hired Ted Shanks as a game biologist. March 14th, 1938, George O. White was hired as the state forester, and since 1947, the George O. White State Forest Nursery near Licking has offered Missouri residents seedlings for reforestation, windbreaks, erosion control, and wildlife habitat. Today, the nursery grows more than 60 species of native trees and shrubs and sells more than 2 million trees annually. On March 1st, 1958, Merrimack Spring opened as an intensive trout area. On March 24th, 1959, Commission authorizes acquiring land at Taperville for prairie chickens and grassland wildlife, which now falls in one of the department's Tier 1 priority geographies for grassland work. March 16th, 1971, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service reports they are unable to continue the urban fishing program, so the commission orders department staff to take over the program. Over the last 5 decades, the program has expanded throughout St. Louis, Kansas City, and other communities, and includes both warm water species and trout fishing throughout the winter. The program provides tens of thousands of Missourians with a close-to-home fishing opportunity. And finally, March 31st, 1965, the commission approved a plan to construct Binder Lake here in Jefferson City. So with that, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, unless there are any questions, that is my report.
Any questions? Comments? Good job, Sarah.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Commissioners, is an action item related to our consent calendar. Hear a motion on that?
You have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approves our consent calendar. Up next is our Regulation Committee, Jason Summers. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. Morning, Chairman, Commissioners, and Director Pauly. The Regulations Committee met on February 27th to review recommendations to establish season dates and a permit quota for the 2023 elk hunting season, harvest and permit quotas for the 2023 black bear hunting season, and recommendations to establish seasons and limits for the migratory bird and waterfowl for 2023-2024. I will present each of these recommendations for consideration today. Mr. Chairman, before I begin my formal report, recall in December, the Commission voted to approve recommendations for proposed changes to CWD management, blood tracking with dogs, and commercial use on conservation areas. Following the Commission's initial consideration, the proposed rulemakings were filed with the Secretary of State's Office for publication in the Missouri Register, which initiated a 30-day public comment period. Please note, one comment received from 3 CSR 10-7.410 hunting methods resulted in a recommendation to modify the language in the proposed amendment. Instead of a dog handler requiring prior authorization from a conservation agent to track wounded game, the language now reads dog handlers must contact a conservation agent. This change would be consistent with language used for a number of years in the fall deer and turkey hunting regulations and information booklet. This change is noted in the final order of rulemaking in your packet on page 11 and 12. A summary of comments along with the department's response are also included in the final orders of rulemaking in your packet for 3 CSR 10-7.431, hunting seasons general provisions, 7.433, deer firearms hunting seasons, 7.450, fur bearers hunting seasons and methods, 7.455, turkey season methods and limits, 11.120, pets and hunting dogs, 11.110, general provisions, 11.111, commercial use, and 3 CSR 10-11.112, photography and videography. Mr. Chairman, unless the commission has any questions or concerns, I request approval for final orders of rulemaking with the change noted to the original recommendation.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have some comments, Jason, and some questions on the changes to the hunting methods regulations. And I understand, so in the fall deer and turkey booklet, we were encouraging folks to contact the conservation agent when they were using dogs to track wounded game. This would solidify it in our regulations that they must contact, is that correct?
Correct.
How are our agents currently record keeping or doing their due diligence to make sure that folks have indeed contacted them? And I ask that because I think that's putting a workload on our agents to be keeping track of everybody who's calling, or I know some folks have a really warm relationship with their conservation agent and are just texting them.
Yeah, so in most cases, that is what's happening. Folks who have tracking dogs and participate in blood tracking, whether it's from the Trackers Association, have their information out there as somebody that folks can contact, have very close working relationships with their conservation agents, and in many cases, as you described, already have established that, hey, I'm going to be tracking a deer in southeastern part of this county, have at it, right? And so many of them have that existing relationship and really have used that contact comment that's been in the fall deer and turkey booklet just as an acknowledgement, hey, I'm gonna be out here. If you get word from the public that somebody's got dogs running deer or out while they're during the hunting season, they know what that activity is, and so it sort of minimizes some of the calls that our agents actually have to take. And so in many cases, most of them that are doing it frequently have pretty well-established relationships. And so you're correct. This has been in the fall deer and turkey booklet as must contact. And we revised the rules largely on input from the Blood Trackers Association. And so they were very comfortable with the must contact language in there, just so the agents know what they're out there doing.
I don't know how my other commissioners feel, but I think there is a distinct difference here from encouraging a best practice, encouraging those relationships between the public and our agents to do the right thing, and putting it into our code in this way.
Any further questions or comments,
Well,
discussion?
The only comment, and I've used a blood tracking dog actually on numerous occasions. I got a friend of mine that handles one. They're not a barking dog, first off, so they don't raise a lot of information of people, you know, and I guess I'm pretty independent, and, you know, we have it in the reg that they have to be on a leash, you know, so, and they're not a disruptive dog. It's not like you're running, you know, coyotes or raccoons and you're trying to differentiate between someone have a deer running dog and saying, well, you know, because we have a reg on a leash. I guess I just question the necessity of why we really have to contact an agent, you know, no more than me contact an agent that I'm getting ready to go bow hunting tomorrow. You know, I mean, that's kind of, that's my take on it. I think it's an element of control that maybe we don't need to involve our agents with, is that's my perception of it.
Yeah, and we had pretty robust deliberations and discussions around this very topic as part of the Regulations Committee, the Regulations Development process, and ultimately erred a bit on the side of caution, given some of the dog running of deer issues that we do have and agents experience in the Ozarks. And so that additional level of assurance that, hey, at least they are making the step of contacting, they acknowledge what their activity is going to do. And in many cases, we didn't have really clearly clarified what they were allowed to do, right? And so part of the language here does at least clarify who can have a weapon, the hunting permit requirements, and those kinds of
Yeah,
things. So
and
I certainly appreciate where you guys are, and we did have that discussion, and frankly, we're on the fence as to whether to put the must have prior authorization into the code.
Okay, I mean, because, like I said, the nature of a running dog, and the disruption and the things, those are the things that gets an agent a call, obviously, because lots of different trespass issues and that sort of thing. I just wonder the burden that we put on the agent. And I talked to my agent actually about this, and he was actually real nice about it. He said, yeah, he said the guys that run Spurt, they're just text him and that sort of thing. But, if you're laying in bed at 1 a.m, someone texts you, because usually when you're involved with that, with a blood dog, it's usually at night, it's usually after you've tried to do tracking, it's usually very late in the evening, and it's real disruptive to those guys that time of year when they're actually having very long hours. So that's just my thoughts on it. I don't see the necessity for the contact personally.
Yeah, just to clarify, the must contact was a recommendation for inclusion from our protection branch. And again, part of it is trying to not intentionally create a loophole that would then make it more challenging for them to prosecute folks actually running deer with dogs. But again, certainly at your guys' discretion.
Yeah, I appreciate,
Can we ask what Randy's view is?
sure. You don't have to ask me. You can just say it.
I was just
You
gonna,
probably give us more insight than anybody, Randy.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate the discussion on this. Part of the concern that we have is not only the deer dogging aspect that is prevalent in parts of the Ozarks still, but also when you think about some of our smaller conservation areas where folks would want to use a tracking dog to follow up on a bad hit, if you will. There is some concern about disruption to other lawful hunters that may be hunting on that same area as well. So the contacting an agent lets the agent kind of help, hey, I got 5 other hunters on this area right now. You might wait a little bit before you disrupt their hunt by taking a dog all through the woods where they're trying to enjoy a hunt as well. So there are some examples where the agent can maybe clarify what the rules are, who can carry a gun, and that communication helps them mitigate other challenges between user disruption. So there is some value in that, and in some of the dog trackers I talk to, they like having their agent know where they're at, where they're going to be, who they're going to be with, because these folks travel around the state to work with hunters that they may not feel comfortable with. And so sometimes there is value in our agents knowing who's going to be where for the safety of the trackers and the hunters themselves.
so you support this?
I do, sir, yes.
Yeah.
But I guess just to add to that, I mean, I believe, I always lose track of the percentages, but 90% of the land is private. So, I mean, you could actually differentiate and say, on private land, you can use it leashed, but if you're on public land, I can really appreciate the disruptive. I used to hunt Port Leonard Wood and stuff, and it would be very disruptive to have someone in there. So, I mean, maybe that might be a compromise on the private land. You could use it, because then you're gonna know who's there. I mean, that's just a thought.
I think where I'm coming from here is, of course, we want to encourage best practice. Of course, we want to encourage communication with the department and our agents, especially when you have to use a dog to track a wounded animal, right? I've been in a household where we had a wounded deer, little man took a shot, and that was not an easy sleeping night for anybody in the house. So I think there's a difference here between encouraging the best practice and making sure folks are doing the things they need to be doing and regulating it and requiring that contact. And that's where I'm coming down on this, Randy. So is there other tools that we can use to help folks have those open communication with the agents so the agents do know who is out with leashed animals tracking wounded deer?
Well, it goes back to the relationship. As this activity becomes more and more popular over the years, there's more and more folks getting involved with it. When it first started, there was a handful of folks that knew their local agents, had a good relationship, and as more and more people are getting involved in these blood tracking dogs, the volume of calls is going up. But it's been my experience, Commissioner, that most of the hound runners and most of the agents have a good working relationship with the interpretation of the rules as we've had them about contacting an agent or authorized or what have you. And so I understand the concerns about having to contact the agent, but with the regulation change you're discussing, a simple text message lets the agent know if they get calls, hey, I hear a bunch of dogs barking at night, can you come out in the middle of the night and investigate this? And they can say, well, yeah, that's Joe, he's tracking a dog, he contacted me by text, I'm not gonna follow up on that call at 2 a.m. Those sorts of things are helpful to what you're describing, Commissioners, building that relationship. And I don't see it as an unnecessary burden for the hound runners or the agents.
Can you help walk through, so for my understanding, the contact requirement here?
Okay.
So we are requiring folks to contact the agent, and as you said, could be a text message, could be a phone call. If we were to have to do any kind of investigation or follow-up on an event, how would our agents be required to show proof of that contact? How much onus are we putting on our agents?
I don't think it's anything unnecessary. They can pull up a text message, they can say, yeah, Joe called me and left a voice message at 3 a.m., they can pull it up on their phone. They can look at it that way. Most of them are having those conversations already before they even get started, right? So the local hound runner has a relationship with the agent, say, yeah, I'm gonna be working in Boone County today, I got 3 calls on follow-ups, oh, here's where I'm gonna be, great, thank you. It's all good. So the proof of that can be through an incident report, it can be through a phone message, it can be through a text message, or just a standing relationship for the agent. The problems that we may or may not have would require, reports of, hey, that dog's not on a leash, and these guys are running their dogs off the leash all through this area, disrupting my hunt. And then the agent would have to follow up on that and conduct an investigation into a possible wildlife code violation for unlawful take of deer with the aid of dogs. And so those are criminal investigations that we would conduct based on the facts of the circumstance at hand, Commissioner. So am I answering your question, or?
So in that last example, how is this regulation helping that investigation?
If the agent has awareness of Joe Hunter is using this particular dog owner to track their dog, they know they got a good relationship. They're not worried about calls from the public. They're probably not going to investigate that based on that contact requirement. It lets them know what's going on in their county, on their conservation areas that they have responsibility to enforce the rules on, and minimizes some issues with user conflict, is the best way I can describe it. What's that now?
So one concern is that if someone is in fact running deer with dogs, as soon as they attach a leash, they could legitimately make the argument that they were trailing a wounded animal, and then our staff would have to be verifying again that they weren't tracking a wounded animal, that they were hunting deer with a dog. So there's some of these unintentional loopholes that I think staff are just a little concerned about too.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any additional discussions, questions, or comments?
I would like to make a motion to amend
Okay.
as it's written so that we can keep the rest of the regulation intact and allow use of dogs,
Right.
but remove the requirement to contact the agent.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
You have a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, the amended motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioners, all recommendations brought forward today establish season dates and limits which are not subject to public comment period, and if approved, will be filed as final orders of rulemaking. On page 23 and 24 of your packet, you'll find orders of rulemaking for 3 CSR 10-7.705 elk hunting seasons and 3 CSR 10-7.710 elk application and draw process with an anticipated effective date of March 31, 2023. The Missouri elk population continues to slowly grow to our population goal of 500 individuals. We estimate 280 yearling and adult elk in the population and will continue to monitor the demographics and distribution of the herd to track changes over time. These rulemakings set the 2023 elk hunting season dates as October 21 through 29 and December 9 through 17 for the archery and firearms portions respectively, and establish a 2023 permit quota of 5. All permits will be awarded to qualifying residents as defined in the Wildlife Code, and at least 10% of the permit quota will be awarded to approved resident landowners whose qualifying property is in Carter, Reynolds, and Shannon County. Mr. Chairman, I request approval for final orders of rulemaking to establish season dates and permit quota for the 2023 elk hunting season as described.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
Do you have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Couple of questions I wanted to ask on that.
Sure.
Just,
We already got past the
you're too
discussion.
quick, you got past the discussion.
Yeah.
I was just curious, this is our third elk season, and we've had 100% success the first 2 times, but we didn't on this one. And I know we've discussed it, but you kind of have some insight for the public to hear your thoughts on that and what occurred.
Yeah, so we did have 3 successful elk hunters, and, you know, I think all along, we never anticipated that we would always have 100% success, although we knew success would be really high. And as many know, across the Ozarks this year, we had tremendous acorn production. And so even, you know, observationally, the elk were not nearly as visible, so they were a little bit harder to find. The 2 hunters that were not successful, is my understanding, and they did have opportunities. They weren't successful in doing that, so it shouldn't be reason for concern that the elk aren't doing well. It's just the reality that it's hunting, and there's times when folks aren't going to be completely successful.
So, we didn't get any complaints of the hunters not having a good experience or anything like that?
Yeah, no, not at all. By all accounts, they had great experiences. They just weren't successful.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
I'm just curious.
Successful in taking game, successful in participating in a cool hunt.
I
for
understand,
sure.
I just.
Yep. Okay, the next set of recommendations for consideration will establish the 2023 black bear hunting season and harvest permit quotas. Here today to provide recommendations for the 2023 bear hunting season is Nate Bowersock. Nate has an undergraduate degree in wildlife ecology and management from Michigan Tech, located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, where he worked with wolves and moose of Isle Royale. After finishing school, he went west to the greater Yellowstone region of Montana and Wyoming, where he worked with a wide range of wildlife, including otters, elk, wolves, black bears, and grizzly bears. After spending several years working in Yellowstone National Park, he went back to school and received a master's degree in fish and wildlife management from Montana State. His master's work focused on the movement and density distribution of black bears in relation to resource availability in northern Yellowstone. He has been working for MDC as the department's black bear and fur bear biologist since April of last year. Nate, podium is yours. Yes.
Before you leave, on the regulations pipeline that's coming up, so a couple of things, just for clarification, 2 things that caught my attention on that.
You're welcome.
The ginseng harvest, I know we're going to have further discussion on that.
Yes.
The one that really caught my attention was the licensed trout fishing area. It says, consider grandfathering existing areas and issuing no new permits. And that jumps out at me as potentially putting a land use restriction on private lands. And I'm very interested to hear really what the thoughts are on that as that regulation works through the process, rather than before it becomes a reg.
Yes, absolutely, and the reason those things are on the pipeline is those are topics the branches have brought forward that they want to have discussion of. We have not had any internal deliberations as to what the approach may or may not be. The report's there really to just highlight, hey, here's some things, kind of a preview of things that we're going to be discussing. but certainly understand and appreciate the concerns
Okay.
that you have.
Well,
So
you know,
we'll
when I
keep you
read
guys
it,
in the
says,
loop.
consider grandfathering existing areas and issuing no new permits. And that really jumped out at me, because if I'm a private landowner and I have a spring that I may have a commercial use for it, I want to increase the value and productivity of my land, that really gets my attention on that.
Yeah, and staff are concerned certainly about, you know, the potential continued movement of fish and spread of aquatic-related diseases. And so it is worthy of us having some discussions as to what that looks like and the risk that potentially poses to native fishes of the state and how we approach it. So it's there as just a continued deliberations, and you guys are aware of the kinds of things that we're talking about that may or may not ultimately even come as a recommendation.
Well, I just appreciate
Yep.
some discussion
Absolutely,
before it comes before us as a regulation.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Nate.
Just a point of clarification before Nate comes up on that last item, or the first item we had under the regulations. We had a motion on the floor, and we had a second, and then we didn't really vote on that motion until you made your second amendment. So we just need to clarify that. Okay.
I think, just clarify for the record that the last vote was to approve the regulations as amended. Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you. All right, go ahead,
Thanks,
Nate.
Jason.
All right, Nate.
Now we get Nate.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
And Commission, it's nice to have the opportunity to meet you in person and
Yes,
actually
thank you.
present this morning. Like Jason said, we're coming up to a year since I've been in the position, and I've had a really great time being the state's black bear for a bear biologist. And so today I'll be talking to you about our 2022 hunting season and provide some regulation suggestions for this upcoming season, but then also update you guys on some of the current activities we are doing to monitor our black bear population within the state. So to start off with, let's just review our 2022 black bear hunting season. So we found that this season we had another successful season. This was our second season. We provided Missouri residents the opportunity to hunt black bears, and we did have individuals that were able to harvest bears. Permit sales, or I should say application sales this year, were down slightly from last year, but considering that this is a brand-new hunting season, we saw permit application sales go from about 6,300 in 2021 down to about 5,800 in 2022. So there was a slight decline, but considering this was a new hunting season, or a new hunting opportunity altogether, the fact that it only dropped a few hundred applicants is very encouraging that folks are still very interested in hunting black bears in the state. When we came to permit sales, after individuals were selected, majority of the permits were purchased by hunters, and actually we did see more permits actually purchased when the opportunity was given to those people that were given the opportunity, which was great. It was especially Zone 3, which we only had 50 applicants. We saw almost all those applicants, individuals that were selected, purchase their tags. So this year we saw, or 2022, we saw 8 bears harvested. All 8 were in Zone 1. Which is right in the core of our bear territory, our highest, where we currently believe our highest bear densities are. If you remember last year, we had 12 bears harvested, so this was a decline in harvest compared to last year. But there's a couple things to remember. So first, our harvest regulations are put in place to provide opportunity for Missouri residents to have a chance to hunt bears, but we're not using this as a tool. So the fact that anyone had a chance to hunt a bear and people were able to harvest bears, I think that's definitely a success. The other thing to consider, though, I think this just keeps coming up in any of our hunting seasons, is that we had an above average acorn crop this year. I don't know if you guys got out in the woods at all to hunt, or even now have gone out hunting. There's a ton of acorns out there. There's still acorns out there. And we've had bears, some of our bears didn't even go into full hibernation this year because there's so many acorns, they put on so much weight, and there's still acorns to feast on, that bears were, during the hunting season, weren't moving nearly as much as they were in previous years. And so that means that the encounter rates between bears and hunters was down significantly. We can see this from our collar data, and then we also, this is just what happens in many years where you have acorn crops above average. You see declines in turkey, deer, and bear harvest rates when acorns are abundant. And so this was the case here, and even with, I don't know if you caught any of Jason Isabel's harvest presentations, but he could show in much of the state we saw an increase in deer harvest, but in the Ozarks there was actually a decrease in harvest, which overlaps right where our bears were. So we didn't see as many bears as we might have expected to be harvested, but that's more than likely related to the fact that we had lots of acorns on the landscape this year. Most of our bears were taken on private lands. We did see a few bears still harvested on public land. We again saw an even ratio of males and females that were harvested, 4 males and 4 females. But this year, one of the exciting things we had was that we had several of our bears that were actually harvested with archery equipment. And I believe all 3 were actually with bows. And so when we did our Discover Nature black bear hunting courses this year, we had several people asking about hunting with archery equipment, and it was pretty exciting to see that not only were people interested in doing that, but they were successful. And if we think about bow hunting in general, it's already hard enough to take an animal with a bow, and considering how things were this year, the fact that we had several animals taken with bows was pretty neat to see. And like we did last year, we conducted a post-hunting season survey of the hunters just to assess, what kind of effort did those hunters put into the season and what was their success rate? And then also just assess their satisfaction with the hunting season. These are key tools for us to utilize when we consider regulations, our current regulations, and considering changes in the future, because having a baseline, so last year to this year, really helps us understand what hunters are experiencing when they're out there hunting. And this is pretty similar tool that we use with many of our other big game species and even with our hunters and small game trappers as well. So what we found this year is that of the individuals that were selected to have the opportunity to purchase a bear hunting tag, more than 70% of individuals in all 3 zones participated in our survey, which was very similar levels of participation that we saw last year, which was nice to see. So like I mentioned earlier, we did see a majority of our tags purchased within each hunting zone, but one thing we did see this year was we saw a decrease in individuals actually participating in the season, even though they had the opportunity. We saw anything from people just saying they straight up didn't hunt, or people that they even responded that they didn't purchase their permits. Now, one of the things that I did notice in the survey was that a number of folks responded that they didn't have time to go hunting this year, which was an increase from last year. Now, why that was, we don't have questions to ask, why didn't you have time, provided that we gave you this opportunity. That was pretty hard to get the opportunity to do, but we did definitely see a number of folks that say they just didn't have time. And I did see that we didn't see an increase of individuals that were selected to hunt in zones that were any further distance than hunters had to travel last year. So, if there was some sort of relationship that a bunch of folks from, say, northeast Missouri weren't able to travel down to Zone 1, you say around Springfield, we didn't see any similarities there. So for whatever reason, hunters this year just didn't take the opportunity, even though it was presented to them. Hunting throughout this season was pretty consistent from the opening day, which is a Monday, through the weekend, which is highlighted here. But after the weekend, we did see a sharp decline in hunting. Again, because of this abundant acorn crop, black bears were just not moving a lot, and so likely hunters were not seeing a lot of black bear sign or seeing bears in general. And so likely this, spending a full week out in the woods not seeing anything potentially led to our decrease in participation at the end of the season. Now, if we look at last year's hunting season participation, throwing the 2 weekends up here, highlighting the 2 weekends. So last year, we had a big storm event over the weekend, and so we saw hunter participation dropped off last year, but we saw a spike after that as those hunters that maybe didn't get out when they wanted to went out over the weekend. But this year, we saw that after the weekend, hunting did drop off. And I will note that a majority of the animals that were harvested were within the first 2 days of the hunt, a couple on the weekend, and then actually one bear that Monday. on the 24th. So that the harvest was somewhat spread out, but happened when there was majority of people were out hunting. No surprise, a majority of hunters participated in their hunt on public lands than on private. I will note that we did have hunters that were hunting on private land. We saw an uptick in individuals that actually were participating in leased opportunities on land. So last year we saw people that were maybe on a friend's property more often, but this year we actually saw more individuals taking advantage of leasing opportunities. So it seemed like people this year were definitely, when they had the opportunity, started reaching out to more folks on private land to take advantage of hunting opportunities. We'll go to, there we go. So then we asked the question, did you see a bear out hunting? In 2021, more hunters did respond that they did see bears, whether they harvested them or not. But in 2022, we definitely saw a decrease in hunters seeing bears while out hunting. So again, with this acorn crop being very abundant and being, the acorns aren't evenly distributed across the landscape, they're in pockets. And so if hunters just didn't find find the sign, find where those really big patches of acorn crops were located, the likelihood of seeing bear was definitely down this year because bears were just focused in those areas, and bears just weren't moving as, oh my goodness, as spread out as they usually would. So after assessing, how hunters were hunting on the landscape, our final question was, were you satisfied with your hunt this year? And we did see that from the 2021 season, which is in blue, to the 2022 season, we did see a shift from the somewhat satisfied to somewhat dissatisfied with the hunting season. Again, this is, I would definitely say it's related to the fact that we had a lot of acorns on the landscape. Hunters didn't see as many bears out there. And then the other thing to think about too is that we put on our Discover Nature courses for hunters right before the permit season. The application season comes up to just, psych hunters up, get people interested in the hunting season. And then after people have been selected, we put on 2 more intensive classes to kind of just help hunters get an idea of what bear hunting's like. Bear hunting's new to Missouri. We do have individuals that travel out of state to hunt. But considering how big of a state we are, bear hunting is still very much new. And so people are trying to figure out what to do. And in these courses, we try to show people that this isn't deer hunting. You don't sit in your deer stand on a game trail and hope a bear walks by. You need to find sign. You need to go out there, find tracks, find scat, find food sources. These are the places where you need to focus your hunting effort. And we went from 55% of hunters participated in the class last year. This year, we only saw about 45% of hunters participate. And in that class, we reiterate what you need to do when you're hunting. And those hunters that said they were dissatisfied with their hunt not only did not attend this course, but then we had complaints, well, I sat in my tree stand for the entirety of the hunting season. I didn't see a bear. Anecdotally, I had a hunter tell me that did harvest a bear. He sat in his tree stand for a week, didn't see anything. He got fed up. He got out of his tree stand, started walking around, and sure enough, he ran into a bear and he shot it. So bear hunting is not deer hunting, and I think that's something that we need to reiterate to folks. The other thing to take in consideration is we only have 2 seasons here. And so if we use these 2 data points to assess how our season's going, we're going to have this downward trend, but we have a big factor here in that acorn season. We might have seen the reverse of satisfaction if we had a failed acorn crop. If the acorn crop was very poor, bears would be moving way more often, and likely hunters would be encountering bears more often. And so I think it's very important for us to take these things in consideration, but before we decide to make any big changes to our regulations, we need to give these regulations at least another year or 2 in the same condition so we can kind of track these trends over time. This is a count. So, or no, it is percentages.
Okay.
Sorry. So of the people that responded to our survey,
Right.
this is
Okay.
the percentage of each category.
Okay, so if you add up all those, you're 100%? All 5
So
columns?
if you sum those up, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep. So, when for our regulations this upcoming season, we're following the protocols we have for the last couple of years. So we put into our population models, we simulate what a harvest for 40 bears would be like based on the harvest ratio that Arkansas sees. And then we also then add into the model our harvest that we've seen the last 2 years for bears. And we project this into next year. How will a 40 bear quota impact the population? And if we put this into the model, we see that we would see a slight decline in the growth rate of the population, but the population would still be growing. And again, our current regulations in place or what we're hoping to get out of our regulations is provide opportunity to hunt. We're not using this as a tool to control the population. We want it to continue to grow and expand. And so with our current, with a 40 bear harvest, we would be able to meet both those goals, provide opportunity and also allow the population to continue to grow over time. And so this would be, just like last year, we would set the season based on our formula as the third Monday of the month, which would start October 16th this year. For Bear Management Zone 1, which is in the southwest regions of the state and in the core of the bear territory, we'd have a 20 bear harvest quota with providing 200 permits to hunters in that area, with 20 of those approved for qualifying landowners. And Bear Management Zone 2, which is the kind of the eastern portion of the southern half of the state, we would again propose 15 bear quota harvest with 150 hunter permits being made available, 15 of those being for qualifying landowners if possible. And for BMZ 3, which is the rest of our bear areas in the southern half of the state below the Missouri River, we would do a 5 bear quota with a 50 permits for hunters and 5 for qualifying landowners. And just to quickly go over how we have things in place, only Missouri residents would be able to apply for a permit through the application process from May 1st to 31st. After June 1st, then we will randomly draw for each zone through a lottery system. 10% of tags will be allocated to qualifying landowners, but we will not require qualifying landowners to hunt solely on their property, so they will be able to hunt on both private or public land. And I will note that the first bear harvested this past season was a qualifying landowner, but he harvested bear on public land, and with archery equipment, so it was a lot of ticks off of what we were trying to provide opportunity to individuals, and he did a lot of those all at once. And we believe doing a qualifying landowners, having this flexibility within the bear management zone, helps create local culture for bear hunting within these different regions, and it provides, equal opportunity for individuals to successfully harvest a bear in the regions they live. So, kind of changing gears here from hunting regulations to monitoring our black bear population. Back in 2012, we had our initial black bear population estimate, which was through hair snares. That gave us a base population, which we've used to track the population over time and eventually set up by hunting season. Well, we continue to monitor bears through many different schemes right now, so whether it's through collaring operations, or we just set up another hair snare study to look into the bear population. And through all these different studies, it allows us to assess, the survival and recruitment rates of our bears, and assess the abundance over time. And with our new study that we're actually doing right now, this not only will allow us to recalibrate our population models, but it'll actually allow us to get at a finer scale, looking at the density distribution of the bears. So how are bears distributed based on landscape features, which we could then use into the future when we want to set different harvest quotas. We can change those based on where bears are more concentrated on the landscape. So like I said, we are still collaring bears right now. We have 19 bears on air right now that we're tracking, and we're actually just about to wrap up our denning season, so going to dens and counting how many cubs are at those den locations. And then of the collars that are on, not only do we get to see how many cubs do they have each year, how many survive, but then we can assess their survival. And if they do die, we can actually we have a good opportunity to go and check, what was the cause of death. We did have 3 bears this past year harvested. They weren't wearing collars, but they were marked, so at one point in their life, they were collared, and we tracked them. So marking bears is very useful for us to just see where they're at on the landscape and how they might die. But then also hair snaring. This is done by making a barbed wire enclosure around several trees. We put a scent lure in the middle to try to get the bears to crawl over under the barbed wire. It pulls their hair out. And then we can, through DNA analysis, get at questions such as abundance. How many bears do we have in Missouri? And then again, at that density distribution, how are they distributed across the landscape? So last year, we actually did the first of 2 years of our hair snaring study. It was focused in the southern half of our core bear territory. You can see most of those sites were south of Springfield and over near Peck Ranch. And we set up 24 arrays that encompassed over 200 hair snares themselves. And at these clusters of hair snares, 15 of 24 did detect bears at them. And those hair samples are now on their way up to Canada to get analyzed by a lab that's used by many bear research across the country. Now this year, we're going to do this all over again, but in the northern half of core bear territory. So we have proposed locations where we want to set these arrays, both on a mix of public and private lands. And we'll have a field crew come out and set up, at least 200 plus hair snares across these areas. And then once we're done at the end of the season, all these samples will be analyzed, and then that'll allow us to get our statewide population estimate. This is really cool stuff. A number of states are starting to do these statewide analyses. A lot of hair snaring is kind of the gold standard for estimating bear populations. It's very reliable. It's a lot of science and statistics have gone into to assess the reliability of these things. And now with how these arrays are configured, now they can be done at a state level, especially when enough resources are put in place to do so. And so this is pretty exciting that we're actually doing this ourselves. And just to put things in perspective, this is where our original hair snare study was done in 2012. And so it's a much smaller area, but that's essentially where most of our bears were. And just considering that the population since 2012, 10 years ago, has expanded so far, it's pretty exciting. And I'm very eager to see where we get hair samples amongst these areas, because we know, we do have detections. Obviously, we had a bear running around the St. Louis area last spring that inevitably got hit by a semi. But we know there's bears throughout much of the state, at least south of the Missouri. Now, the hair snaring not only will provide opportunity to re-estimate the bear population and get a density distribution, but it also really provide us some really great opportunity to focus our community outreach. So we just completed a human dimensions study a couple of years ago to just assess people's, what do people think about bears in Missouri? The survey focused on people that live in core bear territory, expanding bear territory, and then folks that live outside of bear territory to just get their thoughts on, what do you think about bears? Did you know we have bears? And so we got a wide range of thoughts, but overall it seems like people are tolerant of bears right now. Those that live in bear territory have a general idea what to do when a bear shows up, but as we spread out of that area, we know that people's response to bears is varying. And so with our hair snare study, we will not only be able to focus on those communities where we know there's high densities of bears, but we'll also be able to look at, well, hey, this area has the resources to support a lot of bears. We don't see them there. We should probably preemptively put a lot more time into educating those folks about bears so that when more bears show up, they know what to do instead of trying to respond after the time. So, initially we have put on the Be Bear Aware program. It's been a great program MDC put together to inform the public about how to live in sync with bears. But over time and recently, we have become part of the Bear Wise program, which is a nationwide interagency program that works with the public to inform them about bears. And this between these two programs, I think we have a lot of really great resources now to provide educational outreach to folks, whether it's through the science branch or education, communication, we have a lot of really great tools, and I think we're taking advantage of them right now. I know our damage biologists have been using these tools already to, when, say, bears are showing up and eating someone's bird feed, we have great tools to educate them what to do to alleviate the situation. But the big thing is not only is, pairing our resources together, it takes a lot of dedication from a lot of folks. And so we've, all the way from our agents to communication staff, I think we've had a lot of really great buy-in from everyone within the department to, help the community and everyone live with bears. Having bears on the landscape is a great thing. It shows the health of the landscape, and it's nice to reestablish, animals that we're essentially responsible for eliminating. And the fact that we have provided an opportunity to hunt these animals again is, I think, also a really great example of how well the population has been doing. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Questions from the commissioners?
Okay, you're 1 year in. What's been your favorite part so far?
Oh, wow. Bear denning has been a lot of fun. You can't bear den grizzly bears. It's just something you can't do. So that has been a fun thing. But I will say, though, that the fact that the amount of resources that MDC provides staff is phenomenal. I worked for the feds for a long time. I enjoyed my time with the feds, but honestly, getting to work for this agency and the resources that we put together for everyone to get their job done is phenomenal. We accomplish a lot because everyone buys in a lot. So I very much enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, actually, you have a great presentation. I enjoyed that a lot. You also have a very impressive resume, and thanks for working for the department. Really, that's very appreciated. The second slide that you had here, I was just curious how we're handling that. If I understand this correctly, we had 200 permits allocated, but it looks like only 177 actually purchased.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Is there an opportunity for people to buy those leftover tags, or?
We currently, with how things are written, no. So we draw those 200 people and we send out, hey, you have the opportunity to purchase a tag, and we do send out multiple reminders, both mail and phone call, email. But right now, there's nothing in place to backfill if people don't buy their tags. But one thing that does happen is that we see, talking to permit folks, we do see folks that don't even purchase their tags until day of or midway through the season. And so some of those tags, how things are written right now, they just have the opportunity to purchase that tag through the entirety of the season. And if they don't, then it goes unfilled.
Well, it just seems to me like, we're losing out on people to have an opportunity when we've actually allocated the permits. There's a financial incentive. I know that I apply in all the western states, obviously, and then I look at the leftover tag just immediately, there's a drop dead date on it if you haven't purchased your license or if you're going to turn it back in. It seemed like this would be another opportunity to present those to people, that we might want to consider.
I think that's a fair thing to bring up and for us to definitely consider. Yeah.
The other thing, there was, I guess, some nervousness on the department and the commission when we first approved the bear season. Not everybody was on board on us having a season. I'm sure we all know that. And I appreciate, you saying the acorn production and everything, but the people that could be critical of what we're doing may look at that data and put a different spin on it and say, you harvest, 11 bears last year, but only 8 this year. That shows we don't have a sustainable population, or, of the 3 zones, 2 of them you didn't harvest any. I mean, do you have any concerns on that, or is there anything we could do to educate the public better? Because I agree with what you're saying on that. Because, when I talked to Laura, we intentionally put the season really kind of at a difficult time to harvest bears. It's a little bit later, and they're getting ready to den and that sort of thing. Just any thoughts, just in general on that, or any concerns?
No, I think you bring up a lot of things to consider in there. I mean, I think one, just going to what's been published on with established bear hunts throughout the country, like I mentioned, states that have had bear, turkey, deer seasons for decades now, they see things like this all the time, that they could be harvesting tons of bears, and you have a bumper abundant acorn crop, and harvest drops significantly. And so I think there's plenty of data out there to show that this trend, yes, it's only 2 data points, but the fact that we did see a decrease from last year, and we know that there was an abundant acorn crop, it's consistent with what plenty of other states see when that happens. So if someone wants to put a spin on that, I honestly don't know how they would be able to spin it from a science point to say that we have a unsustainable population, especially with our population model showing the population continues to grow. And even after a harvest last year, we didn't see an impact to the growth. And so I'd say right now, I couldn't see how that would how someone would be able to use that against our current populations.
Well, just, make sure that we're thinking ahead so we're responsive to that now, rather than being reactive is the point I'm making there.
No, and I agree, and I think that's anything when we deal with harvest science, anything, I think thinking ahead is key, so we aren't reacting, that we can just show clearly, here's what's going on, and we have XYZ examples to show show what we see is going on.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions? Again, congratulations on joining our team, and your first year is going to be behind you here pretty quick, and get into your second year, and good presentation. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, thank you. This is a good time. Thank you.
Yeah, great questions, commissioners, and that's part of the reason why we've advocated for leaving our regulations stable for a few years, so that we can figure out what hunter behaviors and patterns are gonna be, and how the environment changes and our harvest regulations are gonna change as a result of that. So in the next couple of years, we'll be evaluating where we are and considering what it looks like moving forward. So, okay. Mr. Chairman, I request approval for 3 CSR 10-7.900 black bear hunting seasons, general provisions, and 3 CSR 10-7.905 black bear hunting seasons application and draw processes as presented by Nate and described in your regulations packet.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
You have a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Commissioners, as you know, the department's schedule for setting migratory bird and waterfowl hunting regulations is governed by a timeline established by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Dr. Andy Radke is here today to provide an overview of these regulation recommendations. Andy?
Morning, Andy. Good morning, Chair, members of the Commission, Director, attendees. Appreciate being here. And just so you know, I didn't get caught in a hair snare.
Oh, yeah. We wouldn't have asked that question.
Okay, I just thought maybe somebody would be curious. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to present these recommendations on behalf of the Regulations Committee. Before I do, I really would like to acknowledge several folks in the department. This effort to provide waterfowl migratory bird hunting is a department-wide effort. If you think about the role of the regional and statewide resource branch, helping with banding, banding 4,000 or 5,000 birds every year, collecting hunter participation data, conducting waterfowl counts, a lot of things. The protection agents, every year we do a midwinter waterfowl survey where they're doing a count in every county of the state. The communications branch, it's just, again, a phenomenal effort. Also, I like to think of waterfowl hunters really as citizen scientists. You think about what they do in helping provide and support our seasons and recommendations. They're incredible at reporting bands that they harvest. We have about 1,000 recoveries of banded birds in Missouri every year. About 2,000, or not 2,000 hunters, but they'll submit about 2,000 wings and tails where they have to cut off the wing, put it in the mailbox, send it so we can get data from them on that. And again, even completing surveys. So a lot of work that they do to help us in managing waterfowl. So as we go along today, what I'd like to do is provide a little bit of background on the federal frameworks, then talk a little bit about the webless migratory bird recommendations, duck recommendations, and goose recommendations. So just from the federal framework, just as a point of reference, at the federal level is where is established the season lengths, the bag limits, the earliest seasons can open, the latest they can close. We cannot be more liberal, we can be more conservative. So now turning our attention to webless, I'll start out with doves. If you look at their population has been trending down. The estimate of just over 80 million is still well above the threshold of 59 million that would keep us in a standard season of 90 days with the 15-bird bag. So with that in mind, we're recommending what we've done in recent years of opening the season on September 1st, going through the 29th of November with the 15-bird bag. Turning to woodcock, here that we go by call counts, the call count of 2.46 males per route, again, was above that threshold of 2. That would keep us in that moderate package of 45 days. And so, again, we're recommending what we've done in the past, opening the season on October 15th, going through the 28th of November with a 3-bird bag. The other webless species were status quo as well, opening rail and snipe on September 1st. Rail would go to November 9th, snipe would go to December 16th. Coot would be the same as coincide with the duck seasons. And to point out, the falconry season would extend from November 30th through December 16th. Now, turning to waterfowl, we want to look back and then look at status and recommendations. For looking back, one of the things, just to look back a month when we had the Wetland Summit, a huge thank you to all of you and the CFM for putting that on. It was incredible, the excitement there. I just got to tell you, I've got a lot of jealous colleagues from other states to see an event like that. And more importantly, how many of them said they just couldn't believe that our commissioners would take the time to spend us both during the day and the evening. So hats off to all of you and really appreciate that. When you think about our waterfowl and the success we've had with that, it really goes to what we've been doing with wetland management. And if you think about it, you probably saw this slide at the meeting. In the mid-latitude states, we've lost most of our wetlands. Missouri, we have about 13% of the wetlands that we once did. But the other part of it is to think about the altered landscape. So oftentimes when we think about a river, we think of just the river channel, right? Well, really a river goes from bluff to bluff. Those river channels over time migrate. And when they do migrate, there's abandoned channels that are different. And really then wetlands migrate. And so where wetlands are located really depends on the scouring and flooding, the moving of channels, and they're dynamic. If you think about it now, we try to keep the river channel in one spot and our wetlands in one spot. That's not the way they were made. The other thing is all our major rivers are regulated. So there's no natural flow. There's not a high flow, a low flow. And then you look at the river connections to the floodplain, we have levees along them. So you no longer let wetlands move. You no longer have connection. And again, the flows are different. And so the bottom line, even though we have some wetlands left, the processes are no longer in place. And so it takes a lot of active management to keep these wetlands in place. So it's really cool if you think about what's happened in the past to improve our wetlands habitats. This is looking, boy, back in the 60s, we only had 4 state areas of intensively managed wetland areas. Flash forward and you can see we have many more. And what's really neat is you think about the partnership. So back in the 1980s, there was lots of concern about the loss of wetlands. That led to the start of the North American Waterfowl Management Plan, which is now a model for wildlife conservation internationally. And then there was a funding mechanism, the North American Wetland Conservation Act, to help implement this plan. And it was really based on partnerships. So you look in Missouri, we've had $130 million invested in our wetlands. And you look at it, that's 26 projects, 137 acres. It's pretty amazing. And so where does MDC fit in? It's really challenging. We don't have really good information on all of these efforts on who spent what. But if you look at 17 projects, you can see for those 17, now some of these are in state areas, some are on federal, but virtually every one of our intensively managed areas have been touched by this program in one way or another. But you look at these intensively managed areas, 50% MDC contribution, 31% partners, DU, Audubon societies, and it's incredible because you think about the use of these areas not only by waterfowl but an incredibly number of different birds. eBird, they have hotspots. 18 of the 30 top hotspots for bird species are wetland areas. So it's pretty phenomenal. Now, if you think about these wetlands, in a way, they're still just kind of postage stamps, right? You got to think about what's around them. And so you think back to the 80s, how could you develop wetland complexes where it's not just one wetland, but a series of wetlands? And here's where all of a sudden we had the Wetland Reserve Program and NRCS saying we can spend money to devote to try to get private landowners to convert cropland to wetlands. And think about that, getting farmers to convert cropland to wetlands. Well, you needed a motivated people to buy those and enroll in those, and that's where duck hunters came in. So if you look now at the landscape, this is one example. This is by BK Leach. Where you have the red, it's BK Leach. The one to the north is Clarence Cannon National Wildlife Refuge. And all of these private wetlands are connecting these. So just one example, a state endangered fox snake, western fox snake, now has travel corridors and can spread out, where if we were just a postage stamp, you couldn't. I like to think about it, pretend you're taking your family on a trip, and you've got Thomas Hill Reservoir, not much around it, and some people will go there for a little bit. You have Lake of the Ozarks, where you've got shopping, you've got golf, you've got fishing, you've got restaurants. Think about the number of people that go to that. These wetland complexes are like Lake of the Ozarks for rails, shorebirds, any number of species. They're the travel destination, if you will. And so if you think about it from an investment standpoint, we've had about 160,000 acres of private land enrolled in WRE. There's at least 40,000 of just other private wetlands that private landowners are managing for wildlife. I talked to a realtor who sells hunting property, said, what's your ballpark of what that would be worth? He said, oh, about $5,000 an acre. Well, if you think about that, that's over $1 billion that private landowners have invested in wetland conservation. And the other part of it, they're not just random. NRCS, when they were developing this program, one of the keys was how do we develop complexes? And so they would wait and prioritize applications near an MDC property, a Fish and Wildlife Service refuge. So it was very intentional that we would work together with private partners to develop these complexes. So to me, it's really exciting to think about how Missouri, MDC, and partners have risen to the challenges from the 80s to today. We recognize there's lots of challenges with climate change, changing rivers, infrastructure. How do we deal with all that? And I look forward to how we can work with those partners like we have in the past to deal with those same challenges. Because the challenges we have on our MDC areas, those landowners that have the $1 billion of investment, they're struggling with the same issues. And so how we determine how we can work together to continue to maintain and grow this wetland habitat, I'm excited. And the Wetland Summit was a great opportunity where you saw the excitement, especially of the younger folks, and how they can be engaged and what it'll look like for the next years to come. So as we turn then to what this means for the upcoming season, we can look at the status that has informed our regulation process. I'll turn to what we had in 2022. This is exciting. For the last 2 years, I've come before you and said, we have no data because we couldn't fly any of the surveys. Now we have data. If you look at the amount of wetlands in the breeding areas, it's about 5.5 million ponds. That's our count that we use, which is about 9% above 2019, considered similar to the long-term average. If you look at the duck breeding population, it too is similar to the long-term average. If you turn to individual species, I'm going to show you a graph. This is showing the numbers compared to 2019 and the long-term average. So for mallards, for example, you can see this last year they were 9% below the long-term average, 23% below in 2019. If you look at all species, you can see some species are doing better compared to the long-term average. Gadwall, shovelers, blue-winged teal, redhead are all well above the long-term average. The two species that we really need to keep an eye on are pintail and scaup. Both of those are well below the long-term average. And as you'll hear in a bit, we'll continue to have more restrictive bag limits for them because of that. So with the federal frameworks and what we can offer, I'll first turn our attention to teal. If the population is above 4.7 million, we can offer a 16-day season. You can see our population's at 6.5 million. We're well above. So we can offer a 16-day season between September 1st and the end of September with a 6-bird bag limit. So sticking with what we've done in the past, we often do it the weekend after Labor Day, so we're not competing with the Labor Day holidays and recreation. And it's also when migrations occur. Teal are different than most species. They don't spend much time here. They can arrive anywhere from late August through the beginning of October. And with each front, we'll have some move through. And so these season dates really provide opportunity when some of those flights might occur. So with that, we would put the season dates being from September 9th through September 24th. Turning our attention to ducks, here we use the federal framework of adaptive harvest management based on mallards. In addition to a closed season, we could either offer a 30-day season, a 45-day season, or a 60-day season, and it's based on the population of mallards and the number of May ponds. So if you look at the population of mallards, like we said before, it's just below the long-term average, about 7.2 million. Ponds at 5.5 million. If you look at this matrix, the L's stand for liberal seasons, the M's for moderate seasons, R for restrictive seasons, C for closed seasons. The horizontal axis is the number of May ponds. The vertical is the number of mallards. And you can see with the status we've had this last year, we're well into that liberal framework. So in terms of season dates, every 5 years we go through a very intensive review of looking at lots of different data, getting lots of different hunter input on it. And based on that, the commission in 2020 approved season date formulas where the north zone would open on the Saturday nearest October 31st, the middle zone on the first Saturday in November for 9 days, close for 5, and then open back up for 51 days. The south zone would open on Thanksgiving Day for 4 days, close, reopen on December 7th, and go to January 31st, the latest the federal framework will allow. So with these season formulas, this would put the north zone opening on the 28th of October, closing the December 26th. The middle zone would open on the 4th of November, go to the 12th, close, and then reopen on the 18th, go through January 7th. And the south zone Thanksgiving this year would fall on the 23rd of November, keep it open to that Sunday, the 26th, close, open December 7th, and then go through the 31st. The bag limits will be recommending no change from last year. Two things to note. We have the crazy SCOP bag limit. This is what the package is offered by the Fish and Wildlife Service, but it would be 2 SCOP for the first 45 days and 1 SCOP the last 15 days. We've done this the last year as well. And bottom line, we have very few SCOP that are harvested in Missouri. About 3,000 a year, it's less than 1%. Most of it occurs in November, so having that 2-bird bag limit early in the season will provide the most opportunity when SCOP are here. We do offer and can offer youth seasons. They can occur before or after the regular season. We typically recommend doing them the week before unless it's going to conflict with that early firearms deer season for youth. We don't want to do that. And so looking at this year, it would in the middle zone. So we're suggesting that both the north and the middle zone youth seasons would occur the 21st and 22nd of October, and the south zone the 18th and 19th of November. Now, turning our attention to geese. Canada geese, we have a couple different populations. There's some that nest right along the Hudson Bay and migrate into Missouri. Their population's been doing pretty well. It's averaging about 120,000. The last count was 112,000, fairly similar. Then there's the geese that are further south, the ones that nest in Missouri. They'll nest from all the way down to Arkansas, Kentucky, all the way to southern Manitoba. You can see there's a lot of those geese, almost 1.5 million. Their numbers have been stable. Some states to the north will have 200,000 to 300,000 within their state. In Missouri, we only have about 60,000, so a much smaller number. The framework for Canada geese allows for 107 days with the 5-bird bag limit, and it's really liberal, especially for those states to the north that have those higher populations, so they can try to keep a handle on them. Here in Missouri, we don't have that, so we have a little more in past restrictive regulations, so we can keep that population right in that area, about 60,000. Turning our attention to white-fronted geese, here to look at the status, we're looking at both the population and harvest rates, and their numbers are doing fine. The last 3-year average, about 1 million, was well over the threshold. The harvest rates still continue to be low. So as a result, we can either offer an 88-day season with a 2-bird bag or a 74-day season with a 3-bird bag. This one is the one I find very interesting. It's the snow geese. As you know, we have a conservation order to deal with too many snow geese. The last 10 years, their population has almost been crashing. It's really been going down. We're still above the threshold that would be calling into question whether we should have the conservation order, but this is definitely something we'll want to keep an eye on in the next few years. There's lots of guides that have based their businesses on this in the spring. Missouri's typically the first or second state in terms of harvest of snow geese during the conservation. So again, something to watch. What we're recommending is similar to last year, is have a 9-day early Canada goose season, an 88-day goose season for Canada geese, white fronts, and snow geese. That would open on Veterans Day, go to February 6th, with a 2-bird bag limit for white fronts, a 3-bird bag limit for Canada geese, and then a 20-bird bag limit for light geese. And the reason for this is really simple. You just have one goose season. You don't have issues of identifying species and things like that. Probably one of the most important things is to provide that late hunting season opportunity. And that's why we go to just February 6th, but we don't want to go too late, so we're interfering with that snow goose hunting. And it seems to have been working very well in recent years. So with that, we would be recommending the early Canada goose season to open on the 7th of October, go to the 15th. And like I said before, all the goose seasons opening on Veterans Day, going through the 6th, and then the conservation thereafter. And then the conservation order would start on February 7th and go through April 30th. Also to remind the extended falconry season, they have more days allowed, and we'd recommend that taking place from the 11th through March 4th. So looking ahead, one of the challenges we have is monitoring ducks, and it's important for our wetland management. But here's the challenge. Okay, how many do we have in each one of those pictures? Okay, that's what I say. Yes, and so when we do these counts, typically it's either a ground count. So you're looking at this like a big black blob where you can't see the densities, so it's really challenging to count. The other way is you do it from the air. So you see this salt and pepper. Well, those are all ducks. This is actually the same flock of ducks from the ground and from the air. Now, you also have to recognize when you're doing aerial counts, there's a safety factor. When you're flying low levels over hundreds of thousands of birds, you can have airstrikes. Since I've worked, we've had 3 in our department, and so it's something to consider. So as a result, one of the things we've been looking at is the use of drones and machine learning as an alternative way to count waterfowl. And it's been pretty exciting. It looks very, very promising. We're just finishing up the project, but I think we will be able to move in this direction and do waterfowl counts using drones if that's the direction the department would like to go. So in summary, I just would like to say our recommendations, the season dates and bag limits for migratory webless game birds would be the same as 2022 and 23. Season dates for ducks and geese would be according to the season date formulas. The bag limits would be the same as 22 and 23. And then the falconry seasons would also be very similar to 22 and 23. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Very good.
Great information.
Appreciate it.
Jason?
All right, Mr. Chairman, beginning on page 27 of your packet, you'll find final orders of rulemaking to establish the 2023-2024 migratory bird and waterfowl hunting seasons. I request commission approval for 3 CSR 10-7.440 migratory game birds and waterfowl season limits as presented by Andy and described in your regulations packet.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So move.
Second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Commissioner, since my last Regulations Committee report, 12 comments were received on various regulations. A summary of general comments received is included in my formal report on page 9. The next meeting of the Regulations Committee is scheduled for April 12th, and mid-year code review is scheduled for August 9th. Mr. Chairman, unless you or members of the commission have questions, that concludes my Regulations
Thank you,
report.
Jason. Any questions for Jason?
No, thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks, Randy, for stepping up earlier in the meeting. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's take a short break, and we're back here for item number 4.
My idea.
FY '23 through January '23 were 8.4% higher than fiscal year '22 and 1.2% above expectations for this point in the fiscal year. Conservation sales tax receipts were 10.3% above the same period in fiscal year '22 and 3.7% above expectations. Permit revenues for the first 7 months for FY '23 were in line with the first 7 months of FY '22 and 0.9% above expectations. The number of monetary hunting and fishing permits sold in the first 7 months of FY '23 were 899 lower than the previous year. Federal reimbursements were 2.9% lower than at this point in the last fiscal year and 10.3% below expectations. Other revenue sources for the first 7 months of FY '23 were 40.9% higher than FY '22 and 16.9% above expectations. Next, please turn your attention to the expenditure variances. Total operating expenditures for the first 7 months of FY '23 were 27% higher than the first 7 months of '22 and in line with expectations. Operating expenditures include personal services, expenses, and equipment purchases. Personal service distributions were 18.7% above the previous fiscal year and 3.2% lower than expected through January of '23. Personal service expenditures were below expectations due to staff vacancies. Increases from the previous year include compensation changes implemented in February and July of '22, and commission contribution changes for health insurance and retirement benefits. Expenses were 38.7% higher than this point in the last fiscal year and 6.4% above expectations. Increases in service and supplies are mainly responsible for the variance from FY '22. Equipment disbursements were 38.7% higher than the first 7 months of fiscal year '22 and 6.4% above expectations. The variance in expenditures from the previous year is mainly due to increased costs of heavy equipment replacements. Total capital disbursements were 178.3% higher than this point in the previous fiscal year and 9.9% below the mid-year adjusted budgeted amount. Capital expenditures include land conservation and partnerships and construction. Large payments in January included parking lot accessibility improvements at Bill B. Ranch Lake Conservation Area and parking addition to the Little Indian Creek Conservation Area. Construction expenditures are below expectations at this time due to a combination of factors including longer than normal lead times for fabricated equipment, protracted permit approvals, rebidding of projects due to unfavorable bidding climate, and staff vacancies. Total disbursements for the first 7 months of fiscal year '23 were 38.3% above the first 7 months of fiscal year '22 and 1.1% below expectations. This concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
So how do you calculate 178.3%?
How do I calculate it?
Yeah, just a big number, that's all.
It is a very large number. Last year's capital improvements were quite a bit lower than this year. So it's almost double, or it's more than double, I should
Okay.
say.
It's almost off your chart, I see that, yeah, okay.
It is. I'll have to get a bigger chart next time.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Andrew.
Perfect segue.
Yes. Jacob.
Here he comes.
Oh, yeah, here we go. All right, Jacob, it's all yours, buddy.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Pauly. I have your next 2 agenda items. I'm going to provide updates on the advanced materials you have on major construction projects. In your advanced materials, On the first page, under the maintenance and repairs category, on line 3 at Four Rivers Conservation Area, also on line 4, those two projects, the Unit 3 structure gate repairs and the water control gate replacements Phase 2, both are doing very well. The contractor has completed the Unit 3 structure gate repairs. And then the Phase 2 for the water control gate replacements are 75% complete already. So the contractor's been making very good progress this winter. On line 5, here at the commission headquarters, the IT building roof replacement, as the date of this report a couple of weeks ago, the project was 20% complete. The contractor is making good use of good weather days. However, here, last couple of weeks, it's slowed down, progress has slowed down a little bit just with the cold and rainy weather. In the rehabilitations category, on line 13 at Honeywell Lake Conservation Area, the Spillway Improvements Project, I'm happy to report that we had a favorable bid opening, and we are in process of executing the contract. On line 20 at the Lebanon Forestry Office, as of the date of this report, we hadn't yet advertised the project for bids, but I am now happy to share that the bid opening is scheduled for April 6th for that conference room installation project. On the next page of your report, again, under the rehabilitations category on line 2 at Four Rivers Conservation Area, the overflow outlets, the contractor is just getting started on that work. It's 10% complete. Under the capital improvements category on line 9 at Little River Conservation Area, the drainage ditch crossing project, I'm happy to share that the consultant design contract has been signed, and that design work is starting. On line 13, Shepherd of the Hills Fish Hatchery, the Conservation Center replacement, the notice to proceed is being issued for April 3rd. We are working to schedule a groundbreaking ceremony early in April. So very excited to get that project underway. The contractor is very eager to get started as well. On line 15, Shell Osage Conservation Area, as of the date of this report, we hadn't yet signed that contract yet. But just last week, that contract was signed, and we are working to issue notice to proceed and get a groundbreaking ceremony scheduled for that project as well. See, on line 17, Columbia Bottom Conservation Area, the road relocation project, that design is complete now. We've accepted all the consultants' deliverables. We are now working through the process to get permit clearance before we can advertise that one for bids. On line 18, Jerome Access, the director shared with you earlier that the clearing and blasting activities are well underway. Contractor is making very good progress there. And then on line 23, Bennett Spring Fish Hatchery renovation project, I'm happy to share that since this report was submitted, that design is complete. We have scheduled the advertisement for bids to start on March 26th. Oh, thank you. There we go. So the design is complete. We have scheduled the bid opening for March 26th. I'm sorry, the bid advertisement on March 26th, the bid opening on April 26th, then we will bring a recommendation to award the bid to the commission at the May meeting. That concludes my remarks on the construction projects. There is also the dashboard for infrastructure asset management in your advanced materials. I'd just like to highlight in the center of this slide, the roof sector for buildings. You'll see that currently there's 32% of those roof sectors that are past their expected life with an approximate replacement cost of $4.5 million. If we were to do nothing in the next 5 years, that would increase to 40% past their expected life. If you will consider the projects that are proposed in the fiscal year 24 budget, there are several large roof replacement projects in there, so that will address that metric. And then on the right-hand side, the total asset count by region just gives you a good understanding of the distribution of assets across the state, and the total replacement cost is approaching $2 billion. So that concludes my remarks for the major status report. I'd be happy to answer any questions before I move on to the next item.
Questions on the asset management dashboard, or? Okay. Go ahead, Jacob.
So the next item is an action item for the commission. It is a recommendation for authorization to amend the agreement with HDR Incorporated of Omaha, Nebraska for professional engineering services for the design and construction overview of the Bennett Spring Fish Hatchery renovation project in Laclede County. The commission authorized the director on August 26, 2021, to sign the professional services agreement with HDR for no more than $3,500,000. The amendment would increase the authorized not-to-exceed agreement amount to $3,660,000. Unforeseen conditions during Phase 1 investigations and Phase 2 design resulted in an increase in scope of professional services needed to produce the construction document deliverables. The amendment will allow for additional payment of professional engineering design services needed to finalize Phase 2 and will provide for remaining services in accordance with the agreement for Phase 3 construction. Infrastructure Management Branch recommends the professional services agreement with HDR be amended.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
You have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? You mentioned earlier, Jacob, that you were going to be out for bid on the 26th of this month. Bids received 26th of April, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And then hopefully you get good bids, and then come to us in May for an award. And then how much time would it take to do the construction?
So it'll take 4 to 6 weeks to get the contract executed,
Okay,
and then it'll take 2 years. There's 2 years allotted in the contract term
Okay.
for construction.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, call the question. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you very much.
Jennifer?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I have the next several action items for your consideration. Item number 7 is a recommendation for commission action to dispose of 10.1 acres of the Ullman Tower site in Miller County. These acres do not impact the function of the tower site and are difficult to access. Offer that for your consideration as motion.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good. Item number 8 is a recommendation for commission action to exchange approximately 14 acres for 4.1 acres in a fixed payment to resolve boundary discrepancies at the Cooper Hill Conservation Area in Osage County.
Move.
Second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now, in regard to item number 9, there seems to have been a hiccup in Board Vantage, so item number 9 is missing from the open meeting Board Vantage materials. However, you may reference the hard copies distributed earlier, or you can access the information from the hot link
Okay.
in the agenda.
Okay,
If you're comfortable with proceeding, Mr. Chairman?
please do.
All right. Item number 9 is a recommendation for commission action to exchange a 100-foot radius of Weldon Spring Conservation Area for a 100-foot radius of St. Charles Public Water Supply Number 2 property for the purpose of installation of a new public water drinking supply well.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Got one more, Jennifer.
One more. Item number 10 is a recommendation for commission action to accept a donation of 518 acres in Reynolds County as an addition to Logan Creek Conservation Area. Special thanks to the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, the Conservation Fund, and Ozark Land Trust for their efforts to ensure these donated acres could be offered to the commission. I will also note the commission will make payments in lieu of taxes for the 518 acres, which will maintain the county's property tax revenues in regard to this tract.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Is this St. Charles County,
No, this is Reynolds County.
Reynolds County?
The land trade of the 100-foot radius
Okay.
tracts was for the property in St. Charles
Okay.
County.
Thank you very much. Okay.
You're very welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Okay. All right, let's talk about some timber.
Justine.
Always a good day to talk about trees. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director. It's my pleasure to present to you the next 3 items for your consideration. These 3 action items are all recommendations associated with the sale of forest products. So the department maintains an active forest management program on conservation areas using a variety of practices, including forest thinning, controlled burning, tree planting, and the commercial harvest of timber. So these activities result in healthy and diverse forests, as well as woodland natural communities that provide a multitude of benefits both for wildlife and for Missouri citizens. So forest management helps the department achieve its mission by enhancing terrestrial wildlife habitat, protecting water resources that support aquatic species and recreation, and by sustaining healthy, vigorous, growing forests that contribute to local economies. So all of these actions contribute to the agency's success in achieving strategic outcome 1.1. Missouri has healthy land and waters. So in keeping with established procedures, I have 3 action items for your consideration. Again, all associated with the sale of forest products. The first action item for your consideration is the sale of timber on University Forest Conservation Area in Wake County. This item is 11A on your agenda. This sale will improve overall forest health by addressing oak decline issues. It will help to create a healthy forest that is viable and will be sustainable in the future. The sale will also increase the availability of oak and pine seedlings by increasing the sunlight to the forest floor, which will promote regeneration of those 2 species, as well as a multitude of native forbs and grasses. This sale will also create a diverse tree age and structure that will attract and support assortment of game and non-game species. So I request approval to advertise and sell an estimated of 703,523 board feet of timber on 155 acres of Compartment 4 in University Forest Conservation Area in Wayne County.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The second action item I have for your consideration is a timber sale on Sunklands Conservation Area in Shannon County. This is item 11B on your agenda. This sale will realize all of the same benefits that the first sale, described for the first sale. Except for this particular sale, there's no oak decline present, but we know that the harvest activity will improve forest health and long-term sustainability by removing overstocked and stressed and mature trees. So I request approval to advertise and sell an estimated 1,280,161 board feet of timber located on 106 acres of Compartment 4 on Sunklands Conservation Area in Shannon County.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion?
One quick question, Justine. You said 106 acres. Our materials say 606.
Sorry, 606, sorry.
Just double checking.
Ooh, that'd be a lot of timber on 106 acres. 606 acres is correct, Commissioner.
Perfect.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, and then the last item, the third item, is the final action item for your consideration. This is the sale of timber located on Logan Creek Conservation Area in Reynolds County. This last sale is very similar to the sale that was on Sunklands. It will achieve many of the same benefits as described above, so I request approval to advertise and sell an estimated 3,503,811 board feet of timber located on 780 acres of Compartment 9 on Logan Creek Conservation Area in Reynolds County.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Oh, second. You beat me.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Justine. Jason?
I'm back. Okay, the Missouri Master Conservationist Missouri Conservation Hall of Fame Screening Committee met in January to review nominations. It is with great pleasure that I present to you today 2 nominations, one for Master Conservationist Award and one for Conservation Hall of Fame. Details of each individual's accomplishment are provided in your packet. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, at this time, I'd like to provide highlights of these nominations and ask for commission approval of each one separately.
Please.
The Master Conservationist Award honors living or deceased citizen conservationists, former commissioners of the Department of Conservation, and employees of conservation-related agencies who made substantial and lasting contributions to fisheries, forestry, or wildlife resources, including conservation law enforcement and conservation education-related activities in the state. To be eligible for consideration for recognition, the individual nominated must have performed an outstanding act or developed an innovative idea or technique whose dedicated service over an extended period resulted in major progress in conservation in Missouri. Where a former conservation commissioner who provided outstanding leadership and direction and demonstrated outstanding acts as a citizen in conservation of fisheries, forestry, or wildlife resources. It is an honor, personally, this one is very personally honorable to me to request commission consideration for the nomination of Mr. Lonnie Hansen as Master Conservationist. Over his 30-plus years with the department, Lonnie moved management of the deer resource in the agency forward. Lonnie demonstrated excellent leadership, exceptional public service, innovation, and willingness to take calculated risks, as evidenced by his efforts to lead MDC in a new direction in the management of the state's deer resource. Beginning in the late 1980s, he designed and implemented a series of large-scale deer research projects designed to collect reproductive and survival data. This data allowed MDC to set meaningful harvest quotas and manage the burgeoning state deer population and its ebbs and flows. During 2004, Lonnie led a process of social and organizational change in a far-reaching effort to adapt a new direction in the management of the state's deer resource, with a keen ear toward balancing the needs of hunters, landowners, and the general public. The magnitude of change that was successfully implemented due to his diligence, foresight, and tenacity was nothing short of remarkable. Again, in 2008, with the new challenges facing the deer resource, Lonnie effectively engaged and measured public opinions, collected through numerous venues, but most of all through many deer meetings across the state. Lonnie also launched groundbreaking internet exposure, including video presentations of the potential deer season changes and the opportunity for public comment online. Lonnie led numerous efforts to provide hunters with added opportunity and simplified regulations, including the design and implementation of an electronic system to sell permits, collect biological and hunter demographic data.
Is there anybody here?
Telecheck as it was called in Missouri, and began a national trend to move harvest management and permit sales into the new century. Lonnie's mastery of the scientific realm provided a foundation for management of deer that was recognized not only in Missouri but across the nation. Additionally, Lonnie and his coworkers always set in place a means to evaluate any changes implemented by the Conservation Commission from both a social and biological perspective. The information served the public's need to know, did MDC end up with the results they expected, which served as a basis for maintaining and enhancing MDC's credibility with the public. It served as a basis for refining regulations, and for most of all, it served as a crucial step in understanding the impacts of what we do today so that we can make better decisions tomorrow. And not recognized in the nomination is also the role that Lonnie played in being a mentor to many of us. Myself, he was my first supervisor. I know he served as a mentor to Aaron and many others. And also not recognized as indicated by Deputy Director Jeffries, one of Lonnie's significant contributions was increasing the squirrel limit from 6 to 10. So we can't miss that one. Mr. Chairman, I request commission approval to present Mr. Lonnie Hansen with the award of Master Conservationist.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Good nomination, Jason. Well-deserved.
Absolutely. Thank you. Commissioners, the Missouri Conservation Hall of Fame honors deceased citizen conservationists who perform outstanding acts or had dedicated service over an extended period of time, which resulted in major progress in fish, forest, and wildlife conservation in Missouri. Nominees can be former employees of the Department of Conservation and other related government agencies. Today's nominee for consideration for induction into the Missouri Conservation Hall of Fame is Mr. Lee Redmond. Lee devoted his entire career to producing quality fishing and was undoubtedly one of the most highly recognized fisheries scientists nationwide. Lee's ability to try new management techniques and report the results nationwide to other fisheries professionals was one of his hallmark traits that earned him an MDC recognition as a leader in fisheries management. Lee worked for 37 years for the Missouri Department of Conservation, serving as a fisheries research biologist, fisheries management supervisor, and assistant fisheries division chief. He was widely recognized as an expert in the art and science of warm water fisheries management. He was a pioneer in developing the use of size limits for black bass and other warm water species throughout the state on large and small impoundments. Missouri was the first state in the nation to open a new reservoir, Stockton Lake, with size limits on black bass, walleye, and later crappie. The size limit study was so successful that other large reservoirs in Missouri and other states followed suit. Lee also played a major role in establishing the first urban fishing program in the nation in both St. Louis and Kansas City. He hired fisheries biologists to intensively manage urban waters for the thousands of anglers who fished these local waters. He also drafted the original Municipal Lakes Program for the state of Missouri, which later evolved into the highly successful Community Assistance Program, or CAP Lakes. Lee was also a leader in the American Fisheries Society and served as AFS president in 1994 to 95. Lee worked at the national level through AFS to pass an expansion of the Dingell-Johnson Act that routed federal revenue back to states for funds collected as an excise on sport and recreational fishing and boating equipment. The resulting increase in federal funds to Missouri allowed the Streams for the Future management program to develop, and staff were hired and trained in science and stream habitats. The MDC Streams for the Future program also resulted in the development of the nationally recognized Stream Team program, which now supports thousands of stream teams. Wherever Lee went, he was recognized as a national leader, an innovative fisheries scientist, an advocate for the aquatic resources, and a team player who used his genuine, friendly disposition to bring others together to resolve conservation issues. Mr. Chairman, I request commission approval to induct Mr. Lee Redmond into the Missouri Conservation Hall of Fame.
Before we take action on that, we didn't call the question on the last one with Lonnie. So if we can get a motion, we've already had the motion. We had a second, now we need to call the question on Lonnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now we'll call the question related to our Hall of Fame honoree, Lee Redmond. Do I have a motion?
Do a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Presentation of these awards will be at a future Conservation Commission meeting or other appropriate setting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
It's not counting me.
Aaron?
You were chairman, you crossed all your Ts.
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have the last agenda item here. I just have to start by saying, you know, Lonnie was an incredible mentor for me and Jason and numerous other staff that attended the University of Missouri. I think we'll probably see that in the future with the Aquatic Wetlands Institute, that opportunity to receive that mentorship that obviously played a huge role in the future of Jason and I. So Lonnie, if you're online, congratulations, and looking forward to seeing you. A brief legislative update. Right now, we're in the legislative spring break, so we're at the halfway point in the legislative session. When we return next week, the House will start markup on the FY24 budget. Overall, it's been a relatively quiet session for the department. Most of the activity is focused on other issues outside the agency. But we still are tracking over 100 pieces of legislation right now related to hunting and fishing permit privileges, landowner privileges, MoDOT's roadside maintenance as well, enforcement on private land, land acquisition by state and federal agencies, and then last, the right to hunt, which is a constitutional amendment that has been around since the 1990s. Most of this legislation is moving relatively slowly, has not crossed chambers at this point, which will make it difficult for it to pass as we move towards the end of session. With that, Commissioners, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions, comments for Aaron? Okay,
Thank you, Commissioners.
keep up the good work. That concludes our meeting today. Any other follow-up questions, comments, or thoughts? Thanks for attending our meeting today. Appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of